Hi everyone, and welcome to this second year's episode of Njeri Talks. Today we're talking about the CBK Amendment Act, which came into force recently. And I have with me, and it's my honor to have with me, Nicola Marioki, who's the Senior Counsel for Tala, digital lender, and Kevin Mutiso, who is the chairman of DLAC, which is the Digital Lenders Association of Kenya. So we're going to have a very vivid conversation about the act, its impact on digital lenders in this country, and what it really means. So let's start off. Nicola, introduce yourself. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much, Njeri. Thank you for asking me to be part of this podcast. I've been a keen listener actually since the beginning, so it's an honor to be here today.
That is very, very kind of you. And Kevin, this is your second time here.
Yeah.
We need you more than you need us, I guess.
No, I don't think that's true. I think what you've been doing is very good. It's been very informative. I've actually really enjoyed some of the podcasts.
Some of them. You should be saying all of them.
Some have been really, really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you want me even to say which ones, I can.
You can, but don't worry. We can have a separate conversation. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast. And you guys are the perfect people for this conversation, which is what we try and do. We try and get the people who know about the hot topic at hand, and they're the ones to discuss it for us, yeah? Kevin, when I spoke to you on Monday, just as a background, you said that you were happy, the happiest you've been in a long time. Tell us, what is putting a smile on your face recently?
I think what's making me happy is just that we started this journey in 2018. And the initial reaction or the initial feeling was that the regulatory framework was against us, wasn't pro-innovation, was... anti-digital lending. I feel now the stance is a little bit more welcoming.
Yeah.
And as a result, from where I'm sitting, it's miles apart from where we began.
Where you started.
And that's for me a big thing.
I actually thought you were going to talk about your recent wedding, but I guess that's not the conversation that we're having. But congratulations on getting married. That's an amazing, amazing change of pace for your life.
Yeah, I thought we were discussing professional stuff, but I got married on the 10th of December 2021.
Congratulations.
Santi Sana. Yeah.
It's a big deal.
We're very happy for you, Kevin. It's a very big deal. Nicola, this is your first time on the podcast, and thank you for joining us. For the audience, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Well, as you've introduced me, my name's Nicola Marioki. I'm Senior Legal Counsel with Tala. I've been with Tala 4 months now.
Yeah.
Moving in-house, where previously I was working for a legal consultancy in Nairobi for the past 5 years, but originally from the UK. Having lived in Kenya now for 10 years. Amazing.
So what brought you to Kenya? I mean, I researched and I saw that we were both trainees at the same time in London. We were both in the city at a time where there was a recession, etc. What brought you to Kenya? How do you find it being here for 10 years and having, I guess, made a family here?
Yeah.
Created a family here.
Well, yes, I trained and qualified in London, I think around the same time as
the same year,
actually. Yeah, a long time ago now, 2010.
Yeah.
When you say 2010, you realise how time has flown by.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But trained and qualified with a fantastic firm called Kingsley Napley in central London. Worked there for a couple of years and then moved to Nairobi in 2012. My surname is the giveaway.
Yeah.
I got married to my husband who's Kenyan, who's from Nairobi, and we moved here and it's been very happy ever since.
Yeah. So just for from a personal perspective, because you've moved from in-house, and first of all, when you were practicing, you were in arbitration dispute resolution, and now you're in-house at a digital lender. Can you tell the audience what's the difference between, first of all, working in private practice and working in-house? And then secondly, what's the impact or the change of pace between dispute resolution and then being a general counsel or senior general counsel?
Sure. I mean, when I started off in London, it was very much general commercial litigation or dispute resolution as it's now known.
Yeah.
Just advising on a range of matters, whether it's defamation, breach of contract, civil fraud. Mm-hmm. What I really enjoyed about that and still do is the variety of experience. The industries that you're advising can be completely different across the board. The legal issues are completely different. And you're also advising not just on legal issues, but commercial strategy. relevant to any particular client.
So that lends itself well to being in-house.
Yes. And then, as I said, so that when I moved to Kenya, as you mentioned, I moved into dispute resolution of a different kind, not through the courts, but international arbitration disputes. And where I was advising a range of East African clients on, again, commercial disputes, but funneling through international arbitration or mediation. And then having now made that shift into in-house, I think a lot of the skills from coming from a dispute resolution background lends themselves well to being in-house, because no day is the same. Especially at Tala, you're advising people across guilds, across departments, whether it's the product team on a particular issue, whether it's an employee matter, whether it's regulation like we're here to discuss today. You've got that flexibility, that agility, because you've come from that particular background.
And also, I guess, a peaceful or calm approach to matters, because you're a dispute resoluter. Is that the right word, Kevin?
No. You're the lawyers. I'm the dropout.
You look for solutions, I guess.
You're already used to or experienced in managing expectations. It's a different type of client. All your clients are from the same company. But also being in-house is great because you're more of a business advisor, which actually has been really nice for me to make that move from private practice to being in-house. Because as a litigator, as somebody advising on disputes all the time, clients only want you when things have gone wrong. And when you've resolved the matter, they're very happy. They don't want to see you anymore in the nicest possible way. They're like, thank you, that goodbye. Whereas when you're in-house, yes, you might be advising on disputes, but you're also advising on how to advance business strategy, being legally compliant. And that's actually a lot of fun, because you get to see business growth.
Well, all very exciting things, Nicola, and thank you for taking us through that. Now let's talk about the business side of things, and let's start with you, Kevin. So DLAC, we've talked about it before, and I think we just need a refresher, is the Digital Lenders Association of Kenya. Tell us what you guys do.
Okay, so the Digital Lenders Association of Kenya was formed in 2018 by 7 lenders. It has now grown to over 25 members. And we're actually going through a process of setting up a secretariat so that we can absorb more members, and we can have tiered memberships, so that we can have more fintechs, so not just lenders but fintechs. We have 3 main objectives. The first objective was to get progressive regulation for the sector. Up until December 24th last year, we were not regulated. And there was no law that governed us, for lack of a better word. And by September now, we will be regulated. And so moving forward, it will be trying to improve what's already there, and any other policy recommendations we can make that could improve the innovation in our sector. The second thing was financial literacy. So we have a big thing called the Money March.
The Money March.
Yes, so every March we have, as an industry, we sort of come up with a thematic, and then we all advertise and teach our customers about that thematic.
Oh, wow.
So we're just about to launch the Money March in the next few weeks, and we're going to have a huge conference on the 17th of March.
Oh, wow.
We'll invite you.
Thank you so much. What is the Money March this March about?
So we've not yet decided what that will be, but when we do know, we'll let you know. But it'll be something that will be exciting. It'll be around data privacy and about how to repay loans. So it's,
basically teaching.
Teaching customers the benefits of repaying loans on time. But in addition to that, understanding the data, what they are, what rights they have as a customer on a digital platform.
I mean, that's very important for anyone who's using those kind of products.
And then the third thing is research. We've always wanted to, in the beginning, a lot of the research coming out was from the what do you call them? NGOs would go into the marketplace and then do the research and then say, these are the insights. What we wanted to do is sort of say, okay, we've had the other side, listen, let's give you a perspective from the business. And so one of the initiatives we set up and is now sort of gotten momentum is a thing called the Credit Barometer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the objective with that is to launch it every quarter. And we give a survey to our customers. We usually get about 2,000. Last November, we had about 2,000.
Yeah.
And, derive insights, and then we share that with the public. And the idea there is we use that, we're hoping decision makers are using that data for policy making.
I love this, Kevin. You always bring us such insight. So the reason you're here is because you're the chairman of the Digital Lenders Association. And the reason Nicola is here is because she's Tala, who is a digital lender. So let's talk about Tala, Nicola. Tell us what Tala does in the market and how it came into the market and how it's approached its customer base.
Yeah, of course. Well, I should say Tala was one of the founding members of DLAC and is still a very proactive member in supporting DLAC in its aims and objectives today. So we're also very heavily involved in Money March, which will be exciting this year, especially as Kevin's mentioned around all the issues that are very
with the
current,
regulation,
both with regulation and even data privacy, because the idea that Tala has always supported is trying to just empower our customers and enable them to have that financial literacy to make informed choices. But just about Tala itself, it's a mission-driven finance technology company, a fintech. It was founded by Shivani Soroya, who had done extensive research on microfinance in India and sub-Saharan Africa, I think in around 2007, 2009. Yeah. And she saw a gap in the market where there was an ability to lend to people that didn't traditionally have access to credit. Yeah. So Kenya was actually the first market that Tala launched in 2014. So we have been here a long time.
A very long time, actually.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's only recently that we've obviously been in the press with the launch of a new product, which has been a very exciting time
so
for
it's
Tala.
called Jichagulia.
It is due date, or I'll say loans your way, because otherwise I'll butcher the Swahili translation.
Not more than I've butchered it already.
But yeah, I mean, Tala's mission is obviously to enable credit and access to credit for the underbanked in Kenya and globally. Mm-hmm. We're in Kenya, but we operate in other markets, Mexico, India, and the Philippines. In terms of the new product, it's been very exciting because we've moved from offering term loans to providing our customers with access to choose their due date, to choose when they repay, which just gives them so much more financial choice. And empowers them, basically.
I mean, the idea is that you're making an autonomous decision and it's not imposed on you, which is, exactly what you want. Because you want someone to say, I've taken out this loan, I have set the date that I'll repay it, and therefore stick to their obligations.
Yeah, and just supports what they need the credit for.
Correct.
Whether it's a medical emergency, whether it's to fund business supplies, because a lot of our customers are MSMEs. When you're looking to come into money. Yeah. So you can set the repayment date to when that is, so that you feel confident in your ability to access that credit.
And what's the maximum for our audience?
In terms of loans, right now, 30,000 shillings.
So it's still relatively manageable and not it's relatively manageable, not over.
And it's also risk-based pricing. So the loan that you might be offered or the amount of credit that you might be offered will depend on your circumstances. Correct. Based on the risks assessments that Tala does when you sign up. Many of the digital lenders do when you sign up. Yeah. And then, you might be given a certain amount, and it's up to you what you take and the period of time of which you're able to take it.
Correct. This now brings us neatly onto the CBK Amendment Act.
Can I say something though?
Yes, of course you can.
So I love the way she sort of introduced her business. It's mission driven. And DLAC, that's actually one of the key things. We were also trying to differentiate ourselves from the rogue lenders. So there was a time in this country where there was the digital lending curse, where people were saying debt shame, etc., all these bad manners. Mm-hmm. And I love that she's sort of brought out the point that because they're the type of fintech that's trying to solve a financial inclusion problem, right? Yeah. my business, Oye, we're trying to do the same thing with Borders, right?
Talk about Oye, because
No.
so far we've only talked about DLAC. Go ahead.
No, that's what I mean. So Oye, for example, is giving free insurance to Borders as we collect data on them to then offer them relevant financial digital loans.
So
right?
you're giving them free insurance in exchange for data?
Every time they fuel at our partner petrol station. So they fuel every day. So every time they get to the petrol station, they say, Eka na Oye. They put in the fuel and then it's activated on our back end.
And it's insurance per day or per...
It's insurance per month. So they have a target of number of liters they need to get to.
Before they can be covered?
Yeah, for the first time. And then every time after that, they're just filling up for the next month.
Wow.
And we're giving them up to 10,000 shillings refund on medical bills.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
We have not discussed what the actual CBK Amendment Act says or does, right? So we need to go there. The first thing that it does, Nicola, what is it?
Yeah, so the CBK Amendment Act, as Kevin said, it was passed and introduced in December last year. It basically mandates the Central Bank of Kenya as the regulator for digital lenders. It gives them or mandates them to have licensing and governance or supervisory. What's the word?
And market conduct.
So, every digital credit business or anyone providing credit on a digital platform will now be required to apply for a license from the CBK once the regulations have been published. As Kevin says, we're expecting them by the 23rd of March. And for existing providers, there's a 6-month window. So at least we have that certainty as existing players in the market. We've got between, let's say, March and September to apply from that license. Yeah. And then from a conduct point of view, the regulations, which are still in the draft form, give operational effect to the Act and tell digital lenders, digital credit providers, what we need to be doing in order to be compliant as far as the CBK is concerned.
Yeah.
If you go to the DLAC website and look at who are the DLAC members, it's a lot of mission-driven fintechs. We're here to solve a problem.
Yes. So the issue with the mission-driven statement is that far from being seen as mission-driven and doing, accessing financial inclusion for people, digital lenders who had a bad reputation for being seen as loan sharks and really going aggressively to collect their debts. And so I guess what we're trying to say is that, was the CBK Amendment Act or was the regulation going to come anyway and you needed to be ahead of the curve? Or did you see that in order for you to be seen as financially inclusive, you needed to be regulated and you were willing to go along with that?
So it's a combination of things. First of all, we needed to differentiate ourselves so that we could be taken seriously when our participation was requested. So by law, we must have the public participation, right? Now, if we were considered as the bad actors, any recommendations or ideas we presented would never have been taken seriously. So the idea was coming together, right?
Yeah.
Sign a code of conduct that sort of says you can do this and you can't do this. Adhere to that code of conduct and then now say, these are the regulations we want ahead before we attacked, for lack of a better word. Right? So we wanted to get ahead of the situation because regulation was coming anyway.
And I guess you got ahead of the curve, isn't it?
Well, and I think just on that, I mean, there are genuine mission-driven organizations out there, Tala being one of them. So, look, we came into the market in 2014. DLAC was 2018, 2019. So it was very much trying to solve a problem that was in the market because there was a lot of mistrust about... we've all seen it in the papers, digital lenders, debt shaming, or digital lenders calling people in your phone book. So it was very much, what can we do to try and set ourselves apart, both individually as organizations, but also collectively as industry players.
Exactly.
Tell us, what are the gains that you got from participating in the discussions, moving from the amendment bill to the act, and what do you think the act, is it a good act for you guys?
I'll start with the last question. Is the bill perfect? Is the act, because now it's an act. It's as good as we could get it, right? So the way it works is that every stakeholder has a say, and at the end of the day, the parliamentarians are the ones who choose, right? So think of it like a court case. We all made our case, we all had our points, we all had our facts, we presented them, and some were picked and some weren't. So one of the big issues we felt that the bill before it became an act had was the decisions, business decisions. Not business decisions, sorry, minimum capital requirements, so what we call prudential guidelines, right? We're not banks, we're not deposit-taking institutions.
Yeah.
Why should we then be subject to prudential guidelines?
Yeah.
And we made a compelling case, and the parliamentarians listened and struck that off.
Yeah.
Now we're at the stage where the regulations have been issued by the central bank as per the Act. And so the next phase was commenting on those regulations. And it was actually Nicola and her team that sort of did the legal heavy lifting. And I mean, I think it was a brilliant idea. They split it into three. Harmonization. So there were a lot of pieces of the regulations that would need say something from the data commissioner's office, or
so bringing together all the pieces of legislation that work together,
so that they're harmonized, so that you don't have inconsistencies, which by the way cost money to the business. When there's an inconsistency,
correct, because you need to get it interpreted, and that costs money.
The second was those things that the regulations that didn't have, say, timelines and would affect business decisions and business growth. And I'll give you a good example. If we don't get a timeline for how long a license is issued, right? I, as the investor and as the CEO of the business, I need to know, so do I have 4 staff? Do I have 1 staff? Are we waiting 6 months? Are we waiting 9 months? And there are real costs to the business when we have that uncertainty. So those are some of the recommendations we had in this. And then the final piece was, what can we add to the regulations to make it even better and future sort of orientated? So we sort of suggested what is known as a sandbox, which is a very innovative way of regulators sort of accepting new ideas and testing them within what they call a safe framework. And then, once that safe space, they've gotten comfortable with the idea and the market, and they have seen the risks, they can now make regulation specific to that entity.
But who are people already in the sandbox, or they've not decided?
No, these are the suggestions we made as per the public participation that we are sort of given the right to in the Constitution. So now we wait for March 23rd, which is when the final regulations will come out. And then we have to be compliant by September 23rd, 2022.
Okay, fine.
Have I missed anything?
No.
Beautiful thing about Kenya is we have precedent. So M-Pesa. When M-Pesa was being ideated, it's on paper and in technology, it's very easy to do. It's very nice, right? But it had to be regulated by someone. And in those days, there was no payment service. It's called the National Payments Act.
National Payment Service Act.
That wasn't there. So they used a sandbox-like framework to test the idea of M-Pesa. And when they saw that it would have real benefit to the society, they then adopted it and created regulations specific to M-Pesa.
So, I mean, the actual things that you need to do are, for example, becoming a data controller under the Data Protection Act. There's, regulation on fit and proper tests for directors and shareholding requirements.
Yes.
Those things are very onerous for a lot of businesses, and that's the real impact on a company like Tala. So what I would ask you is whether or not you're satisfied that these regulations are things that you can meet and are not discouraging other digital lenders from coming into this marketplace.
Your first question about Tala's ability to satisfy the regulations. They are still in the draft form. As Kevin says, we have given our feedback both as Tala, and then we've been supporting DILAC and giving DILAT's feedback on the additions that we think the CBK should consider to make the regulations better. And as Kevin's mentioned, harmonization and clarity, because clarity is key for both the regulator and for business, because both benefit the consumer at the end of the day, which is actually the purpose of the Act and the regulations.
The point that you made is that you've given your commentary on the regulation so that, so that there's an interpretive way of businesses such as Tala coming, being compliant. But the Act already has set a course for what is required of a digital lender. And so how do you marry what the Act says with any commentary on regulation, which is only then to interpret what the Act already provides?
Well, the regulations themselves actually dictate what a digital lender or digital credit provider actually has to do. One, to obtain a license from the CBK, but also in terms of the conduct aspect, what it actually needs to do continuously, because it is going to be under the supervisory
role
ambit of the CBK now on a rolling basis. You will apply for a license. I think it's renewable every 1 to 2 years.
It's 1 year. I'm almost certain it's a year.
Yeah, I think
it's the CBK releases a list every March.
It does
by March 31st. Every year.
Okay.
So
if you're not on the list,
there's two elements to it. One, licensing, because you've got to be licensed to be ordered to operate in Kenya, and two, from a conduct perspective, what have you got to be doing continuously to satisfy your licensing requirements? Because if the CBK sees that you're failing those requirements, then obviously there are powers under the Act, the regulations, to suspend a license or to even revoke a license.
And then third is transitionary clauses. So that was the third thing. And maybe that's another win we can say DLAC and the ecosystem achieved.
So talk to us about that then.
So, the original bill did not have any transitionary clauses. It was basically once the bill is passed, we all have to be compliant on the next day. If you've been in the financial sector before, you know what kind of mess that causes. Because then
and
you
uncertainty.
Have uncertainty again. And so we recommended that we have a set of transitionary clauses which basically said, look, one, give us time to comment on the regulations, right? So that the CBK releases the regulation and then we then get a chance to say, we think this and that. And then two, we need time to comply, right? It costs money. We're both VC funded. So we have budgets, we have to justify expenses, etc., and we have to allocate the money from somewhere.
Of course.
So we initially, I think, wanted 12 months, and it was scaled down to 6 months.
Okay. The 12 months, I think, was ambitious in this marketplace.
Yeah. So to come to your point, if you're an existing player in the market, we do have a 6-month transition period.
Yes.
Which is quite good.
Yeah. Which is great.
It's better than nothing. 12 months would have been great.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But, the initial draft, the CBK have worked hard to have quite a balanced framework.
No, indeed, yeah.
So even working with the initial draft, businesses right now know, if they're not already operating in line with those requirements, where they need to be transitioning into.
And also because one of the other requirements is to be incorporated in Kenya. So anyone who is not needs to now come in line with that.
Yeah.
So
I think it's hard to operate a lending business in Kenya without being incorporated in Kenya, because you disburse either using M-Pesa or
correct.
RTGS, and you can't have a bank account
without
for that type of business in Kenya without being with a Kenya
business.
And the other thing that you touched on, Njeri, was you've mentioned, in order to be licensed, you've got to have a certificate of registration from the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner.
Okay.
So, those two, it's what we were talking about, harmonization, they're so entwined together. digital lenders will now have to register as data controllers and also possibly data processors before they can apply for licensing under the Act. So there is a lot going on right now.
Then the other thing is the Data Commissioner's Office ready to issue those kind of certificates? Because they are also a very new organization that maybe has not come into their own. I know that they're doing a lot of activity, but it seems to me that everything is being put together very quickly without maybe giving time for the establishment of these things.
I mean, I don't think we can comment on what a government office is doing. What I can say, though, is the support for that office from all arms of government is very high. I think today at the payments event, the data commissioner was there and her office was discussed. We've been to several forums where they invite us or we invited, we are both invited and we're both given a space to speak about what we're trying to do. So I think there's a lot of engagement going on with the various stakeholders. And I think what I can say representing DLAC is we support that office as well fully.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't? But I think what we're talking about is much more. Is it operationally feasible?
I mean, they're getting there. We've already had a couple of meetings. We've met the secretariat. We have a game plan. We have, I think what people, or rather, what can be misunderstood is that there's nothing that happens in a day. Right, so it may feel like certain things are not moving fast. Yeah. But trust me, I think they're moving as fast as they possibly can.
Yeah. And I think just to that point, as the big push for data protection right now is mass sensitization throughout Kenya. Yeah. So the registration has to happen regardless of what's going on. So many organizations, digital lenders included, are going to have to register. Yeah. It's just for digital lenders, we will have to register in order to be licensed by the CBK.
As well. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, all of this is complicated to someone who may not understand what has been going on in the background. But essentially what we're saying is that in order to be operational as a digital lender in Kenya at the moment, the CBK Amendment Act has brought in changes that require you to be licensed not only by the CBK but also recognized as a data controller by the data commissioner, as well as additional requirements to do with the company's incorporation. And so it'll be interesting to see how the regulations come out, what they say, and the impact that they have on businesses. So I guess watch this space, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're just eagerly awaiting the final form.
And in fact, you asked a question, are we happy the regulation? It's a very difficult question to answer. I think we are happy with the work we've done so far. But until the game starts, we don't know also, right? So we're hoping for the best.
Yeah. I guess, Nicola, for looking to the future, once you've accepted that you're legislated for, or there is legislation that governs you, it kind of leads into more entrenched regulation. Is that something that you're prepared to fight? What are you going to do? I mean, now that you've accepted, yes, fight. Why not? Lobby, is the word lobby against?
I think it's more of hopefully a consultative discussion
process,
that remains an ongoing discussion, because we are in a new space. We have moved from being completely unregulated in Kenya to now obviously being regulated, and there is a need for that. Yeah. And I think, as we were talking about earlier, the mission-driven, responsible lenders are supportive of regulation in Kenya, because it does benchmark standards. Yeah. It does sensitize the consumers on what digital lenders are about and the standards that they should be adhering to, and gives confidence in the industry, which then also fosters innovation. But to go now to where do I see it going? It's an unknown, because we're entering a regulated space this year. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We still don't have the final draft of the regulations. We're going to have to see how licensing and being supervised pans out. But what I would hope is there are no fights, and it's more of a continuous discussion, because I think we all recognize Kenya is a leader in fintech innovation, and we want to continue to promote that and support that.
We need that market, because we're a great playing field for fintech organizations, and the customers have been very willing to engage in different products and innovative products that have come into the market.
In fact, if anything, sorry to interrupt you, I think the digital lending industry has demonstrated and can be used as a case study of how to regulate a cutting edge industry, because what happened was they let us run.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of mistakes were made along the way. Some, could have been avoided perhaps, but now we're being regulated with a full understanding of what the risks are.
Yeah.
Which is a better way of regulating a business.
Yeah.
So the second point is, I don't think it's going to be a fight per se, because I don't think the banks, for example, fight with the CBK, right? You're regulated under the CBK. Yes, you do have what do you call them? Conflict, right? But I don't think it gets to the point where a solution cannot be found.
No, and a solution has to be found in an environment where people want the economy to progress and for customers to continue to engage.
Yeah. For digital lenders, what I'd advise them to do is, look at the existing, the first draft of regulations and start sort of planning your way, because a lot of the framework is going to be similar.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to change the framework too much. They might change the detail, but they won't change the framework.
Yeah.
And then, if you're in the digital lending space, I'd advise you to join DLAC. Go to our website, dlak.co.ke. We now have a secretariat. We're soon changing our name to the Digital Financial Services Association of Kenya to encompass more fintech.
Okay.
And, I think we've now shown that we can deliver.
And I think that's a perfect way to end this discussion. Thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you, Nicola.
Thank you.
I mean, all we can say is that the regulation should be encouraged. It's the implementation that we're yet to see, and we want to see it benefit both the customer as it's supposed to, and also not affect businesses, which is what we want to see. Anyway, this has been a very interesting, stimulating discussion with Kevin, Mutiso, and Nicola Marioki on the CBK Amendment Act. Thank you guys for listening, and see you next month.